You're watching GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10. Thanks so much for joining us. We have an incredible program for you today. I hope you're ready for about a half an hour of just sitting back and saying, wow, that's amazing. As you know, most of these programs, I try to find one word to describe my guest, and that's a really hard task because the people that come on GAB with ALisa have very full, round stories to tell. But I have the perfect word for my guest today, and that word is courage. You're going to meet Zenobia Dyson here in just a moment, and this is a woman of incredible courage doing some amazing things in our community. So get yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of tea and sit back down and join us in just a moment. We'll be right back with GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10.
Why smart people buy their used cars from Jack Fitzgerald. Reason number 1.
The most important reason to buy a car from us is our 138-point inspection report. We check the car out thoroughly, and we put a copy of that report in your glove compartment so that you know as much about that car as we do before you buy it.
Shop our entire used car inventory at fitzmall.com.
And that's the Fitz way. There's just no better way to go.
Changing times brings changing needs. That's why, for your convenience, Booth's Heating and Air have extended their service hours to 10 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, at regular service rates. Through rigorous training classes and courteous business practices, Booth's technicians always go above and beyond to provide you with award-winning customer service that you can trust. Booth's Heating and Air, serving the Southern Maryland area since 1993.
You're watching GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10. Thanks for coming back. I'm so glad you're going to join us today because we have an incredible story to tell. This is Zenobia Dyson. Zenobia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You have recently made a decision to step into a very big pool of light, if you will, and tell an incredible story that you have. And we're going to draw that out for you through through the program on GAB with ALisa. First of all, let's talk a little bit about your background and who you are. You're born and raised here in St. Mary's County, right?
Born and raised here in St. Mary's County. Went to Great Mills High School, graduated in '94. I'm married. I have 4 children. I have a granddaughter. Oh. She's a handful. I work here in Wildwood, pursuing my bachelor's degree. My husband and I have been a volunteer coach for recreation and parks, basketball. I guess 20-something years we've been doing that, and we mentor to the youth while we are coaching basketball. I am also a career advisor for our church, Dominion Apostolic. We try to encourage and uplift individuals, help them with employment and educational things that they're looking to shift into. Activists in the community. I believe I'm an advocate for the youth, females especially. And I also written a book.
And you've also written a book, which is what we're going to talk about in a moment. You know, when I have people come in and be guests on my show, a lot of times in my head I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how do you do all of that and manage to make it look like this? You have 4 children.
4.
And you know what, I think we've met at basketball games because, as you mentioned, you and your husband coach with Parks and Recs.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about some of the basketball teams you've coached.
Oh, goodness. Well, the first team we coached was the Tar Heels, I think, and then we moved on to the Heat. 3rd and 4th grade, then we bumped up to 5th and 6th grade. We started out with my daughter when she was in 3rd grade, and she really didn't like it. So my son, my second child, he started basketball in 3rd grade, and we was like, he's pretty good at this, so let's stick with him and see how far this can go. And he played basketball all the way up until his sophomore year in high school.
Wow.
And then we took on the next child and coached them and coached the last one as well. And we enjoy it because you get to see a lot of different personalities, see kids growing up, and I think it's important for me to see children have a role model, somebody they can look up to, somebody that's going to instill positive into them. So, you know, my husband, he's the stern one, I'm the nurturing one, so we try to do balance. Okay. And it works out really well, and we coach really well together. So I don't know if we're going to do it next year, but we might participate, just go and support the kids who we did coach. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you've been doing it for 20 years, that's a long time to have done
time.
it. And it's funny because I was going to ask you, what decided, what was part of your decision to do this? And you mentioned you just love watching the kids grow and mentoring them.
Yeah, I love the game of basketball. My husband had to coach me so I can coach the kids, but it's just something about the game of basketball that I love. And we get a lot of kids that come through that really don't know how to play, but at the end of the season, they had gained a whole lot. So it's more than just coaching basketball. It's just mentoring to them. We talk about homework, we talk about school, talk about kids being bullied and things of that nature. So it's just more, it goes beyond basketball.
Do you think that some of the young people today are facing any different types of things in school than we did when we were younger, or do you think it's the same thing? We're just having to take the wisdom that we have. I think
today is worse. For me, I think it's worse. The children today are getting into a whole lot more than what I was getting into or what my children were getting into. So I think that if parents or adults would step it up and go old school on the youth, on the kids, disciplining, yes ma'am, no ma'am, because my children still say yes ma'am and no ma'am, and I won't have it any other way. So if we just instill that in them and still, show them that we love them, but we have to be firm, we have to discipline, and they will grow up to be better. Well,
what you're talking about is really such a broad picture of balance, because you said, I'm going to coach basketball because I feel like I have something to give and I want these children to learn and to have this example and this opportunity.
Right.
Now you have to do it within structure because that's what is healthy.
Right.
Now, talking about structure and healthy and so forth, you kind of had some rough patches when you were growing up, which is what makes your story particularly unique. And we're going to talk about that in our next segment. Some rough things that happened to you as a kid, and your decision to do something with your life as an adult as a result of those things has impacted a lot of people. I think it's going to impact our community and probably beyond as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk a little bit about your childhood and how that has propelled you to where you are as an adult.
Yes. Okay.
It's a great story. It's a great story of courage. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10.
Life is a journey. Every day is a chance to do more, be more, and be better. Hi, I'm Dawn Campbell. Join me on this journey to be your best, whether you're working in a cubicle, managing a full house, or entering a new chapter of life. If you feel good, you look good, inside and out. Join me each week for Be Your Best on MetroCast Channel 10. We can do it together. Be Your Best is brought to you by Burris's Old Town Insurance, an independent agent representing Erie Insurance Group.
You're watching GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10. On this program, we meet people that are here in our community that sometimes have had things happen to them, sometimes they've made huge decisions, but all of them, every guest on this show has decided, I'm going to do something with my life, and usually it's for the betterment of the community. I love this program for that very reason. And my guest today is Zenobia Dyson, who's written a book, and we're going to talk about the book in just a little bit. But Zenobia, in your words, I want you to tell your story. You had some rough things happen to you as a child.
Yes.
I'll let you address that.
Well, I'm believing it's started from the age of 8. A family member. I was sexually molested by a family member for approximately 2 years, I guess. That's what I can remember. It was rough.
I'm sure.
A lot of weight, a lot of pressure. You knew what was wrong, but you felt wrong if you said anything.
Sure.
And confusing. You're confused. You're not the same. I know I wasn't the same. it seemed like I was growing up too fast, or I was withdrawn from my friends, became depressed, wanted to kill myself a lot of times.
You mentioned a cousin. You have a cousin.
Yes.
And this is kind of when, I guess, the dam broke, if you will.
Yes.
You were talking to your cousin.
Yeah, I was home one day. My mother went grocery shopping. My cousin was there because she used to babysit me on the weekends. And I snapped at her out of the blue, just snapped at her. And she didn't like it, of course. And she knew I was different. She knew it was something had to be wrong for me to just totally disrespect her the way I did. And she asked me random questions about, what's wrong with you? Why are you talking to me like that? Why are you behaving this way? Is somebody hurting you? So when she said that to me, when she said that, asked that question, I had to tell her, because I knew if I didn't say anything right then and there, this was going to continue. It wasn't going to stop. And I was too young to know how to stop it.
Sure.
And now, previous to me telling her, I told my mom there was things happening with this family member. But it just didn't stop. It escalated. It just kept getting worse and worse. So, and I just couldn't deal with it, so I told her. And she was like, okay. We cried, we hugged, we cried. And so my mom came back home, and my cousin told her that Zenobia has something to tell you. And my mom at the time, coming in the house with a bag full of groceries, she didn't want to hear it. Well, I talk to her later, I don't feel like it right now. And then my cousin said, you have to listen to her. You need to stop what you're doing right now and listen to her. So I told my mom, and she cried, and she called my grandmother. And next thing I know, my mom, called the authorities, and I'm taken to the hospital and, being examined. And it seemed like the nightmare just got worse, because now I have exposed who it is. I have to tell who it is. I have to go into details of what happened. And it just, you're just confused. You just don't know at the age of 8, 9 years old, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And the person that you love so much and that you trust, and you're wondering, why? What did I do that was so wrong?
Right.
And of course, at that age, you think you're the one who is wrong. What did I do? And the reason why it took me so long to tell, because of the threats that were made. So I was scared.
Sure.
I was scared. So living in fear, growing up. And that fear has carried over for so long. And not being secure, low self-esteem, just afraid of making decisions for yourself, not knowing who you are, hard to trust people, hard to be around people, hard to open up to people, because you keeping a secret, so you are master at keeping a secret, and then you are master at suppressing the secret. So, for me, I was a master at suppressing it, because no one needs to know. There's a threat over my head, so I can't tell. So I got to learn how to deal with it. I got to learn how to press it down far as it can go and still act like I'm normal. But I knew at the end of the day, at nighttime, that's when it would bother me, nightmares, being afraid of the dark. I would hear his voice. So, that's the emotional scarring part of it.
Absolutely.
So, and I guess that is why I chose to, 22 years later, to tell my story, because living with depression and hearing about other children being abused, whether it's sexual or physical, verbal, no child should have to endure that, because that's supposed to be the happy times, that's supposed to be the good times, and that's when you're supposed to not have a care in the world, because you're supposed to depend on your family to take care of you. And I was like, no more.
No more.
No more.
No more. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get a cup of tea, and we're going to come back. As I mentioned at the start of this program, courage. You just heard somebody's story in their own words. And you know what, statistically, if you walk into any crowded room in our culture these days, you can look around and probably 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 people in that room have suffered something similar to this. However, the number of people that are coming out and saying, hey, no more, is very small. We aim to change that. Zenobia personally aims to change that through courage and through her voice. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to tell you what her voice has managed to say 22 years later, and it's all wrapped with courage. We'll be back with more of GAB with ALisa in just a moment. You're watching MetroCast Channel 10.
Everybody knows Jeep is an American icon. It's fun on the road, off the road, to take you anywhere you want to go. Here at Fitzgerald, we have all the Jeep Chrysler models and our low posted price. There's no hassle, no haggle buying a car here. It's fun. Plus, it's backed up with Fitzway service.
Get 0% APR financing on almost every new 2015 Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep.
Treat yourself to an American icon. That's the Fitzway. There's just no better way to go.
Changing times brings changing needs. That's why, for your convenience, Booth's Heating and Air have extended their service hours to 10 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, at regular service rates. Through rigorous training classes and courteous business practices, Booth's technicians always go above and beyond to provide you with award-winning customer service that you can trust. Booth's Heating and Air, serving the Southern Maryland area since 1993.
You're watching GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a really important program as we talk about courage, having gone through a childhood that was really kind of rough in patches and some really hard things that happened. Zenobia Dyson, you're to a place in your life where you've said no more, and not only no more for you, but none for the young people that are coming behind you.
Right.
You've decided to address some things that happened to you in your childhood through a book that you have written. And can I hold this for a second?
Sure.
I want to talk about the outside of the book a little bit before we talk about what's inside. Your book is called Inside of Me, and this is just an incredible picture of surrender and yet also of almost of grabbing a hold of something. So let's talk a little bit about the cover of your book and what went into this.
My husband and I decided we're going to find a book cover that is going to complement the contents inside of the book.
Okay.
And so one day we was driving to DC, and he gave me the title of the book, Inside of Me. And I was like, yeah, everything that's inside of me, I want it out of me.
Okay.
So I'm sitting on some rocks, and I'm sitting there while he's getting the camera together, and I'm just praying to God on the rocks. And he's like, you know what, we're gonna put like a ball and illuminate it.
Okay.
In the middle, like I'm holding what's inside of me, I'm holding it out, because that represents survival. It's just, I survived through everything. I can speak about everything. I'm not afraid of everything anymore. It's freedom.
I love that. I am a big fan of symbolism and an imagery that tells more than what the picture is right there. So I love everything about that title. So if somebody picks up your book, what can they expect from it?
Well, the book reveals different life experiences, personal challenges, hopelessness, and different traumatic events in this book. This book will show a person who is weathering the storm that God's hand is orchestrating His plan and His purpose for our life. The reader will find, many messages embedded into the poetic words of the poetry that's in there. Daily devotion supported by scripture. The reader, it's like the reader is taking a journey with me through my eyes, and they experience what I've experienced. They're going to go through what I went through, and they're going to see how I persevered. This book is not just a book, it's evangelism, it's outreach, it's a ministry, and it serves as a vehicle to ignite, empower, revitalize.
Whatever's inside of everyone.
Yeah.
Just a little excerpt from the book. You've got 7-day-a-week devotions in here, and there's one sentence as I was perusing your book, one sentence. You turn on the news, it's the war in other countries, a baby shot in a stroller, suicide, financial breakdown, but the sentence that jumped out, our sanity is in question. Sometimes when you watch the news, you really just want to put your head under a pillow and be done with it.
Right.
People are running away, so we try to look for what we think are better avenues to help us in our situation, help us in our time of need. Going forward a little bit, not realizing when we run up the mountain, there's fruit in the valley. There's fruit in the valley. This is where you will find God's glory. Your book definitely has a very spiritual tone to it. Everything is saying, pointing toward what is inside of you as a gift from God.
Yes.
And just saying there is hope, and there is a way to be courageous yourself if your life has been incredibly traumatic. I wanted to make sure that we talked about one more thing, because you're a poet. You have this beautiful book, and the prose is just incredible, but you are a poet. And if you look in the book, your author's name is Zenobia Euphonious 7 Dyson.
Yes.
So, Euphonious, I had to ask Zenobia about this when she first came in, and I am a self-confessed word nerd. I like words. Euphonious, that is a beautiful word, and you use it to describe yourself. What does that mean?
Euphonious is rhythmic, it's lyrical, it's a sweet sounding to the ear. And I believe if I'm going to reach souls, reach people, the name needs to complement the work.
There you go.
So, it has to complement the work.
I love that. We just have a couple of minutes left. You went through hard times, you came out on the other side, you've decided no more, and you're reaching out for other people. Where do you see yourself, or what is your dream for 10 years from right this moment?
10 years from now, God willing, I hope to be traveling across the world, evangelizing to lost souls. Continue to be a servant for God and bring people to the light, which worked for me. It might not work for everybody, but just to be an inspiration, just to encourage, to uplift, just to inspire somebody.
I love that. and this is exactly, you just nailed it, why I love this program. In case somebody's watching and they're struggling with something like this in their life, I want to make sure that they understand that there is definitely light and help, and there are places to go to get help, but also to understand it's work.
Yes, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because it's nothing done overnight.
Right.
But if you have a strong support system, mainly God, if you believe in Him, and I was raised in the church as a young child, so I always, my mom and my grandmother always told me to pray, and that's what I went back to.
Okay.
But sometimes we feel like that doesn't work, and we become immune to going back into the dark. But this book, it might not be for everybody, but those that are trying to look for a resource, then if you tried everything else, then try God, and I guarantee you, you won't regret it.
There you go. Zenobia, hats off to you personally for being brave enough to tell your story. And then, because I don't think necessarily bravery and courage are always the same thing, you were brave enough to decide to tell your own story, and now you have the courage to say, and I'm going to go get the people that are in the dark, and I'm going to bring them with me as well. So hats off to you. Your book, how can people find your book?
They can go to my website, which is www.euphonia7.com, or they can go to Tate Publishing Company website and purchase the book.
Wonderful. Do that. It's an excellent resource if you would like to take a look at A Portrait of Courage, Zenobia Dyson and her book, Inside of Me. Thanks for joining me today. Such a great conversation.
Thank you.
It's an amazingly hard topic with an amazingly wonderful ending. That's going to do it for this episode of GAB with ALisa on MetroCast Channel 10. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.